The most difficult conversations you have with your boss never actually happen out loud. They happen in your car, in the shower, at 3 in the morning when you stare at the ceiling. You are about to learn how these private imaginary arguments are actively building the relationships you claim you don't want. And without knowing it, the mental rehearsal you ran this morning has already begun to guarantee your next interaction will be a battle. You've been there. An argument ends, but your mind keeps running. It plays the highlight reel of what you should have said. The perfect comeback. The devastatingly logical point that would have won the fight. Each repetition feels like you're gaining clarity, sharpening your verbal weapons for the next encounter. This feels productive. It feels like preparation. It is preparation. You are preparing your nervous system to expect a fight. You are training your brain to associate a specific person with a state of conflict. Every time you replay the argument, you are deepening a neural groove. You're pouring concrete around a negative assumption. This is a rehearsal. No, it's an indoctrination. You are teaching yourself at a cellular level who this person is and what they mean to you. Threat. This is the brain's default setting. It's a conflict simulator, running old battle programs to prepare for future ones. But what happens when you deliberately seize control of the simulation? Your brain has a fascinating flaw. It struggles to distinguish between a real event and a vividly imagined one. When a pilot trains in a high-fidelity flight simulator, their brain is forming the same neural connections they would in a real cockpit. The stress response is real, the muscle memory is real, the learning is real. Your inner conversations are your social flight simulator. You're logging hours. The only question is what you're training for. When you imagine a tense exchange, your brain doesn't just think about it in the abstract. It simulates the entire experience. The same regions that process social cues, emotional responses, and language light up as if the person were right there in the room with you. Your brain maps their imagined facial expressions, their tone of voice, their disapproval. It then maps your own defensive reaction. It's a feedback loop contained entirely within your skull, and your brain builds muscle memory from these imaginary scenes. That new wiring shows up in your body language long before you ever open your mouth. Picture this. You're scheduled to talk to a family member about a difficult topic. For a week, you've been running the conversation in your head. You imagine their criticisms, you rehearse your defenses, you feel the familiar knot of anxiety in your stomach just thinking about it. Now the day arrives. You walk into the room to meet them. What are you bringing with you? You're bringing a body that has been practicing for a fight. Your shoulders are a little tighter. Your jaw is subtly clenched. Your breathing is shallower. You are physically radiating a defensive posture. You are broadcasting conflict before a word is spoken. The other person, who may have walked in with a neutral mindset, now has to confront this wall of non-verbal tension. They pick up on thousands of micro-cues, your lack of eye contact, the slight edge in your voice, the closed-off posture. And how do they respond? They become defensive themselves. They mirror your energy. The argument you practiced for a week is exactly the argument you get. You created a self-fulfilling prophecy. You saw it as prediction, when it was actually programming. This feedback loop is almost impossible to break from the outside, because to you, it feels like confirmation. See, they really are that difficult. But the key to dismantling this machine was refined by people who deal with the highest stakes imaginable. Performance psychologists and high-stakes negotiators know you can't walk into a tense situation carrying the baggage of past conflicts. You have to create a new internal state first. The technique is deceptively simple. You find a quiet space, you close your eyes, you bring the image of the person to mind. But instead of replaying the old argument, you rehearse a different scene. A better one. You imagine the conversation you want to have. You don't just think the words. You feel the feelings. Imagine them listening. See their facial expressions soften. Imagine them nodding, perhaps saying, "I understand." Feel the sense of relief in your own body. Feel your shoulders drop. Feel the knot in your stomach unwind. Don't just visualize it. Embody it. You are running a new simulation. You are logging hours in a different simulator. One designed for connection, for resolution. You do this for a few minutes each day, leading up to the real interaction. You are building a new muscle memory. Rehearsing a positive outcome feels good for you. That is obvious. It lowers your own stress levels. But the strange part is what happens next. People who practice this consistently report that the other person in the real world suddenly acts different. They're calmer, They seem more receptive. It feels almost magical. How can your private thoughts influence someone else's behavior? It works through the physics of communication. Think of two tuning forks. If they are engineered to the same frequency, striking one will cause the other to vibrate even from a distance. Your inner state sets your resonant frequency. When you walk into a room, you are broadcasting that frequency through hundreds of nonverbal signals. Your old frequency was tuned to conflict. Your posture, your breathing, your heart rate variability, the subtle tension around your eyes. It all broadcasted threat. The other person's nervous system picked up that signal and resonated with it. By running the new simulation, you have changed your own frequency. You walk into the room carrying the physical memory of a positive interaction. Your body is calm. Your posture is open. Your facial expression is neutral or even warm. You are broadcasting a new signal: safety. The other person's nervous system receives this new data. Confronted with openness instead of defense, they have a different set of choices. Their own mirror neurons can't help but reflect your state. You've changed the music, so they start to use different dance steps. You haven't controlled them. You have created the conditions for a different dynamic to emerge. This explains how we can influence a dynamic. It gives us a lever on our side of the equation. But what's the true psychological engine behind this? What part of you is actually being rebuilt during these inner conversations? You are rebuilding your internal model of that person. We never interact with people directly. We interact with the model of them that lives in our own mind. This model is built from past experiences, assumptions, and fears. When you constantly argue with someone in your head, you are reinforcing a mental model of them as an adversary. You are carving it in stone. Then, your brain acts as a filter, searching for any evidence in the real world that confirms your model is accurate. And it always finds it. A neutral comment is interpreted as a veiled attack. A simple question is seen as a challenge. The act of deliberate positive rehearsal is an act of editing that internal model. You are consciously introducing new data into the simulation. You are showing your brain this person is also capable of understanding. They are capable of being calm. You are creating an alternative file. When you do this enough, the model itself begins to change. You start to see them less as a caricature of an enemy and more as a complex human being. You are changing the lens. When you change the lens, you see a different person. And when you see a different person, you behave differently toward them. This is the heart of the mechanism. Critics will say this is just wishful thinking. That you can't change a difficult person just by imagining them being nice. They are right. You can't change another person's fundamental character. This is about influencing the dynamic, the space between you. You are changing your half of the equation. And since every relationship is a system, when you change one major component, the entire system must reorganize itself around that change. The people in your head are models. They are avatars. And you have administrative access. Every inner conversation is an act of programming. You're either reinforcing old buggy code that leads to crashes, or you're writing a new operating system for that relationship. The real conversation is just the program running. The work was finished before you ever opened your mouth. And this exact process of rewriting internal models explains why your core personality feels fixed, when it's actually just the story you've been rehearsing for decades.